just make a start. So good morning. Thank you very much for tuning into this latest webinar. Just so you know, we're going to be recording the session for those who can't join us live. I'm Max Finlay from Escon, and I'm delighted to be joined by James from iPlicit, who's going to be doing all the hard work this morning. This is the morning, James. This is the third in a series of 3 webinars that we've been holding. In November, we looked at the procure to pay process. Last month, we dipped into a couple of the specific modules within iPlicit, the project ledger and the fixed asset register. But today, we're going to look at what could be arguably the most important part of a finance system, the ability to extract the data in a meaningful and timely way. Because at the end of the day, companies run their business based on output from their accounting system and take the necessary decisions based on that. So it needs to be produced quickly and accurately. If you don't get the accounts produced until the end of the following month, it doesn't give the business any time to make corrective decisions, etc. And one way that sort of inaccuracies can arise is rekeying data, some manual work, copying and pasting into Excel. Just not great practice, but amazes me how many organizations still do that. So James is going to take us through what iPlicit can offer in terms of reporting and how we can address the issues I've just mentioned. Go through maybe a couple of positioning slides first, and then we'll get cracking with the product. As with the previous webinars, we're really only just scratching the surface of the system. So hopefully it will give you a taster for what the system can do and its power for processing and reporting in this particular case. But if you'd like to have a more closer look at the system, we're happy to set up a specific demo to go through things in a bit more detail. We'll be reaching out to everyone on the call after the webinar. So please feel free to get in touch, and we can get something organised. Time allowing, we'll get some questions or take some questions at the end. So feel free to type any questions into the text box, the Teams text box, and we'll cover those either as we go through or at the end. But if there are any questions as we go through that you'd like James to cover at the time, please feel free, and we'll monitor those and cover them at the time. So without further ado, I'm going to pass over to James, and we'll see the product in action. So over to you, James.
Thanks, Max. Pleasure to be here. Great to be working with you in this webinar this morning, and great to see all of the attendees here today. So my name's James. I'm a solutions consultant at iPlicit. If you haven't met me before, I've been with iPlicit a couple of years. I've been in the industry about 15, working with businesses and charities of all different shapes and sizes on sort of their financial needs and their sort of cloud-based accounting systems. So yeah, it's great to be here today. And absolutely, Max, we see this all the time. Month end is a big challenge, can be a big bottleneck with businesses and organizations of all different shapes and sizes. But there are tools out there. We're in the age of cloud, the age of AI. The tools exist to make your life easier, to get you home earlier, to help you finish on time, to take that weight off your shoulders at month end. We understand the struggles and the challenges. So what are we specifically going to talk to today? Well, actually, I want to start with a quote. Month end used to take us 10 days. Now with iPlicit, we're done in 3. Quite impactful, as quite a drop, quite a big change in that month end process. And month end shouldn't feel like you're fighting fires. It shouldn't be endless manual work with spreadsheets, reconciliations, rekeying data, reposting, adjusting, workarounds. It shouldn't be produced so late that it doesn't add value. Reports arriving after the decisions are made. Finance stuck explaining the numbers, not advising on strategic decisions. No time for insight. And we see this all the time, and this leads to, a low confidence in the numbers. Late minute or last minute journals, version control issues. Are we sure this is the right decision to make? Can we trust the numbers? All the time. Most finance teams don't move to the cloud to close the books in the same way they always have, just online. What we still see is month end dominated by manual steps, spreadsheets, reconciliation work that hasn't fundamentally changed. And by the time reporting is done, the business has already moved on, and finance is just left justifying the numbers rather than shaping those decisions. And when everything is happening late, under the pressure, obviously that confidence drops. So the question becomes, what would month end look like if automations and reporting actually linked together? So what we'll look at today, very generally, reporting and automation. So, from a reporting perspective, we'll look at how iPlicit shows live real-time data on ledgers, approval workflows in the system, inquiries, reporting options across the ability to drill down, the ability to pivot, slice and dice, view the data visually on dashboards, and more, lots more. But we can't just look to where we're going. We also have to look to how we got there. Because part of that month end isn't just the output, but it's the ability to get to that output accurately, consistently, and with as little manual work as possible. So we're going to look at some of the automations along the way. Invoice scanning, prepayments, deferred income accruals, bank reconciliation. The things that take that manual effort, that take time at month end. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to share the screen. Well, I'm already sharing, but we're going to jump straight into iPlicit. Okay. Now, of course, let's preface it slightly with a little bit of an introduction. If this is the first time you're seeing iPlicit, then let's just show you, how do I navigate? What does it look like? How do I sort of move around it? Okay. Now, if you don't know, iPlicit is a true cloud solution. Okay. All you need is web browser and internet access. Hard not to have those in this day and age. Okay, so all you need to remember is iPlicit.com and your password. Even having said that, most web browsers, it'll remember your password for you, so you don't even need that. So really, very, very frictionless access. But in addition, we've got single sign-on. If you use Google, Microsoft, you can gain access to the platform very easily, and multi-factor authentication. Okay, so highly secure data points, data access points within the system. Right? There's even a mobile app for things to post things, to review things, to approve things while on the go. Now, when I log into iPlicit, you can be presented with whatever you like. I'll come back to these dashboards a bit later on, but they're generally what users want to see. A visual representation, real-time data across my organization. Month-end reporting already starts to look a little less important because we're empowering users to see real-time data and make those critical decisions all the time. Now, of course, every organization has a variety of different roles and users across it. I'm logged in today as a full finance user, so I can see and do everything. But that's not always the role that's needed. Sometimes we might have hybrid roles, a bit of finance, maybe less access required. Maybe we've got expense claim raisers, like myself with iPlicit. Maybe we've got budget holders, department heads, that need access to, so a bit more data than your average, your standard user, but not quite everything. But in addition, maybe they need access to certain levels of data, not just permissions. Or maybe you want to control what they can enter into the system. iPlicit allows for you to control this on a whole variety of different levels. Permission controls, data access controls, and data entry controls. So I could have a user that can just see a set number of nominal accounts, a set number of products. Maybe they only see certain legal entities within the system. Okay, so this is a full, true multi-entity environment. So users see and are exposed to the data, again, that's meaningful to them. They don't need to chop and change, apply filters themselves. It's done automatically and out of the box, empowering them again to get familiar and comfortable with the data that's relevant to them, again, informing them of those to make those critical decisions. Now, how do I navigate the system? You've probably guessed I've got a series of tabs across the top. Great, I click on those. I click on the sub tab. So here we go, purchase invoices, and I open up my invoices. Simple, okay? It all works like that, all right? But there are some other ways, like with a lot of products out there these days, you want to have multiple ways to get to the same answer. So I could say, I don't know where I want to go. I could click on the big iPlicit button in the top right, top left, I should say, and I get a big holistic overview of all the features and setup options within here. Not to overwhelm you, but that's a way you can get to all that data, all those different features. But equally, I could use a search bar. So I could jump into here and say, I want to see my legal entity structure. We jump in like so. There we go. Simple. Those are my legal entities, but I can get to it through that search bar. In addition to this, what you'll notice today is this sidebar here starts to become the central point of my navigation. Everything I do gets logged onto that. I can add favorites to it. I can choose what automatically loads on startup, like my dashboard we saw at the beginning. So it's very much user controllable, user definable, and really easy to navigate. You'll seldom see me leave this browser tab at the top. Now, that's not the only way I can navigate. Well, I mean, let's take a screen like this. This is a data screen. Okay, now you'd expect there's going to be some standard things you'd expect on here. I can apply a load of filtering options by legal entities, document numbers, series, invoice date ranges, and things like that. Yeah, that's fair. I could also add some custom filters and grouping options at the top. I can search within each header. So let's say I wanted to look back at all of my invoices in December last year. I can jump in, quickly filter, and there we go. And I can see the status of these. Are they paid? Are they posted? Are they pending? Draft. Is there an error or have they been rejected? Live system, real-time data, meaning that I have, well, it's easy to find things, especially at month end. I can isolate, identify all the transactions that I need to reconcile. And just like that, I'm back to that reset. Okay. If there are column headers that you want to bring in on top of this, they're all available. So loads of additional fields and columns that I can bring in. But of course, I've got things like the outstanding balance. So we know these have all been paid here. We can see the dates. We can see what legal entity that it's part of. Like I said, multi-entity environment. I have access to several entities. I can see them on screen here. I don't need to filter to hide one or hide the other. Okay. Now, maybe on here, I actually couldn't find the invoice I'm looking for. Well, do you know what? I've got a secret weapon, my global search. And this way I can actually dive in, search for something. It's going to ping me back a series of results like so, and then I can lead my search from there. Now with iPlicit, of course, against every transaction, we can also hold documents and put in comments. So I can see those attachments live at search point, on the ledger, wherever I am. I could drill down into this transaction to the actual transaction itself, like so, watermarked as paid, audit log present, attachments, comments, it's all there, right at my fingertips, just a click or two away. But what I could also do from here, because maybe I don't know which of these it is, well, let's just select all, open them up, and there we go. Sidebar activated. We can now scroll through and see each of those invoices just like that. And there we go. We found the one we wanted to find. It's pending payment. Great. Must be part of a payment run. We just haven't processed it yet. So really easy search, real-time data, easy access to thumbnail and tab through all of those different transactions or things that we are searching for. Now, last piece I'm going to talk about before we really dive into the month end piece is, of course, how do I ask for help? Now, there's always lots of different ways to do this, but if I jump up here, we've got a dedicated help. Now, I could launch this through into our user guides and go through user guides, release guides, and things like that. That's great. We also have the ability to contact support, depending on who you're perhaps supported by, where there are knowledge bases, tickets, training video, the ability to review tickets, access training videos on demand 24/7. It's all there right at your fingertips. However, with our responsible approach to AI, we've embedded additional help within the platform. And this comes in the form of our AI help down here. Now, this isn't your traditional chatbot, okay? In fact, it's not a chatbot at all. It's not there to just take you through a path and funnel you to a support agent. This is responsible AI embedded within iPlicit, answering your questions, just like you would those other AI tools out there. Now, I could say, do you know what? Actually, I just want us to get started. Show me a video. Great, it's right there. How quick was that? Maybe I want to go into a little bit more depth into some advanced functionality. How do I close out year end? okay, there's a video. Pop it open. That'll take me through step by step on how to run my year end. Suddenly, every process and task within iPlicit is right at your fingertips and video led. But actually, I don't want to do that. I need help. How do I set up a bank feed? But you can ask it anything. How do I post a journal? How do I do this? How do I do that? It scours our knowledge base and formulates the appropriate response just for you. Okay. So 24/7 support right at your fingertips. Now that's just a quick overview of iPlicit, giving you a bit of a feel for the system. Of course, please post questions in the chat. I'll happily address them. We'll happily address them a bit later on. But of course, let's approach month end. So we're at month end. How do we improve this? Now I'm going to touch on the how we get there first, some of the automations within iPlicit, and then I'll lean towards the more reporting side of things. Okay, so how do we get there? Well, iPlicit's Automation Center. So if I jump into here, iPlicit is powered with a whole variety of automations: accrual automation, prepayments, billing schedules, deferred income, depreciation postings, FX realizations, intercompany journals and postings and things like that. Okay, you can already imagine the time saving that is happening with all of these. You know, I post a multi-currency journal or sort of transaction, you know, I'm buying something abroad. Then I pay it a week later. Of course, that FX rate has changed. There's a realization that needs to happen, but it's already happened. It's posted it, it's allocated it. That is the power of the iPlicit Automation Center. But let's have a look at some of those in action. Okay, and actually the first one I want to start with is accounts payable automation, because we all know that bringing in invoices into a platform can be manual, can be time consuming, and although maybe not always directly related to month end, it certainly helps speed up processes and get you to that real-time accurate data, again powering that month end turnaround. So let's jump into that. So here I've got my accounts payable inbox, invoices that have been sent in to us from suppliers. Now we utilize Microsoft Azure's document intelligence platform. That's their OCR and AI tool. It's embedded within iPlicit. Okay, we give you an email address. Most of our customers will have a auto forwarding rule or a button in Outlook to send those transactions, those supplier invoices into iPlicit, whether there's one invoice, a 50-page invoice, or 50 one-paged invoices. Not a problem. It'll scan those, it'll consume those and translate that data into iPlicit. The best part, you do not need to teach it. I'll say that again. You do not need to teach it. It's that powerful. It'll look at that document. It'll take the data from it using its own very, very powerful optical character recognition, and it will translate it into iPlicit. Okay, so let's take a look at one here. Let's take a look at this one. This is an invoice I sent in. We can see it's taken that invoice. It's found my supplier. Of course, if your supplier does not exist, it's not going to manually create that for you automatically. It's going to ask you to go through a check there and create the supplier. The good thing about that is actually we have supplier approval workflows and bank account approval workflows. So you can be assured that even if you're getting invoices and things like that, it's going to be appropriately checked that you are setting up the right suppliers, putting in the right bank account, and ultimately when you get to your payment runs, it's all going to go through an authorization. Little sidestep on a future development later this quarter with iPlicit, we have AI anomaly detection. This invoice comes in at 2 a.m, it gets flagged. Who raises an invoice at 2 a.m? This invoice is 10 times larger than that supplier traditionally sends you. It's going to flag it. The things that are out of the ordinary are going to start to be flagged within iPlicit. Again, taking that weight off your shoulders from a risk perspective. Some of the other things this of course scans in: invoice number, the invoice date, and it falls into the appropriate period. As a side note here, there is full automated period control. Okay, perfect for month-end close. So when I'm moving forward into the next month, I don't necessarily want my sales and purchase ledger transactions, when they're coming in late, dated last month, automatically going into last month. I might want to close out that month so they hit the new month, the new period. But of course, as you know, if we take that initial scenario at the beginning, that quote that I mentioned, our month end takes 10 days. So we're still processing journals and corrections and adjustments for a week and a half. We don't want these documents, these other transactions, to go in and derail what we're doing. So we have a soft close. These documents, and you can be very configurable around this, will post into a period that we define. All right. Doesn't mean you can't change it, but there's an automation, there's some rules there around that. Now, of course, let's get back to this. We pick up then, of course, the values. We pick up the line by line level data, quantities, the values, and of course, we can see our total value matches that on the invoice. Fantastic. Remember, I haven't had to teach it to do that. All of the raw mapping data is brought in from Microsoft, so you can be confident in its success rate. In fact, it's a 98% success rate, and they scan in millions of documents every day. Of course, you're probably thinking, well, how did it pick up the account code, product, dimensions? You're absolutely right. That isn't going to be on the invoice. These are things that we have to tell it, but we don't have to, okay? Because that invoice is never going to hold that data. But of course, maybe a little clue in our supplier, financial services, this is our accountant. Let me drill down into that accountant and show you how I got some of that data in there. Okay, now this supplier is in fact also a customer, so we have dual records there. But if I go into that supplier side, we have a series of defaults. So I can help direct some of those values to some predefined defaults within the system, meaning that when that transaction comes in, we're aiding in that population. But I don't need to teach it in terms of the scanning. All I need to do now is hit convert and submit. That invoice goes through iPlicit, hits my ledger, just like so, and goes through an automated workflow approval. Now, I won't go into workflow approvals in too much depth today, but from a month-end perspective, they are still quite valuable and important because, of course, we're automating the distribution of approval workflows across sales ledger, purchase ledger, journals, payment runs, bank reconciliation, budget approval, expense claims, timesheets, new customers, suppliers, a whole host of things can all go through that authorization workflow, meaning there's less to chase. Things are already distributing. Things are already automatically reminding users, you've got some outstanding transactions, you've got some outstanding this, you've got some outstanding that. Go in and approve it. So it's doing the chasing for you. Again, removing that manual workload for you. All right. Now that's come into here. It's gone through that approval. We can see, well, actually, it's gone like so. I can go in and then approve that myself. I, of course, have self-approval switched on. This demo wouldn't maybe last too long if I didn't, but there we go. It's approved, and it's at that point of approval that it posts to the ledger and becomes available to be paid. All right. Now, back to accounts payable automation, because I want to take you through the first real sort of month-end automation that I want to show you here, and that's prepayments. So we're going to take this insurance invoice that we've received. Again, I haven't had to teach it anything here, but what I do need to do is define the profile in which we want to prepay this invoice. So I can hit edit. I can change anything on here, but as a rule, this insurance code we have defined as being allowed to have a prepayment within iPlicit. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a profile. We'll leave it a straight line 12 months. That is what the invoice dictates. We are going to, where we can see our invoice date is the 12th, but we need to prepay this from the 1st. So we're going to pop that in. I'm going to save it and I'm going to post it. I mean, surely that was too quick, right? Surely I couldn't have done it in that time. Well, let me authorize, let me post this and show you what's happened. If I jump into that now, there's my prepayment tab. There's my prepayment schedule. And what will happen, there's my first release journal. So it'll hold it on the balance sheet, as you would expect, under the prepayment control account. And then it will automatically release that to the P&L. Okay, so it's going to do that month on month, all based on whatever profile you choose with it. Okay, powerful automation, reduce
James,
manual work. Yes.
sorry, James. Just a quick one. Joy put a question in the chat just a wee while ago, and
Oh,
rather
yes,
than leave it till the end, it's quite relevant to bring it up at this point.
absolutely.
What are the options if you go ahead and post that invoice like you've done, but then discover that it should have been phased? You know, if it wasn't phased originally, what are the options for sort of phasing it
Oh,
retrospectively?
absolutely. That's a great question. Was it? Yeah, that's a great question. So, do you know, I actually had this on a demo with a customer yesterday. Exactly the same question. Okay. So if I posted that, let me see. Let me see if I have actually really quickly. Do I have? Here we go. Let's use this one. So slightly older one, but the same invoice that's come in. So let's redo this or post it into November. We'll see that period automation. So post it into January. Let's remove that prepayment. All right. We'll leave that. Well, we can leave it like so. We'll just change that for the moment to today so we can easily identify it. I'm going to save it. No prepayment, but we know we should prepay that. I'm going to convert and submit, go straight to my purchase ledger. Oh, there we go. Refresh. There it is. I'm going to post it. I'm going to approve it. So it's on the ledger. There we go. We have not prepaid it. Maybe it gets caught at the approval stage. We can change it. We can edit it at the approval stage if you give someone the rights. Okay, so it could have been caught already, but let's say it's not been. What do I do? Well, of course, there are controls. If it's been posted, if it's been submitted as on the VAT return, there are certain controls you want to have in place. But understandably, you want those in place. But let's say, oh, it was posted the other day. We need to change it. That's fine. I can come in. I can unpost, like so. I can hit edit. I can select prepayment. And do you know what I can even do? If this was if this was from November, do you know what I can do? I can backdate it. Okay. So I can say, do you know what? Let's backdate that. It's going to go through that authorization workflow again. We're going to apply it. We're going to jump back in, hit the prepayment tab. There we go. There's my schedule all lined up. Do you know what's also happened? My prepayment journals. They've all retrospectively posted. Now you think, well, hold on, I don't want to be posting back into November and December. Don't worry, they won't. They'll maintain the tax point date for those journals, those release journals, but they will post into January because that is the period control that I've put in place. I hope that answers your question.
Perfect.
But yeah,
I'm sure it does, Joy. So hopefully that did. Joy had another question, but just
yes.
I'm conscious of time, so we'll leave the second question till the
Okay.
end, James, if that's okay.
Of course, no problem at all. So yeah, I'm conscious of time. So equally, right. So in terms of some of these other month-end processes, we've got those prepayments there. Let's take it from the sales ledger. Okay, we can do a few things here, whether it's full billing order, sort of processing, billing scheduling, or whether it's simply just deferred income. What we can do, and I'll do sort of the larger of the two, but if I jump into this and say, right, I have that one. If I jump into here and say, right, I want to schedule some invoices and defer it and add deposits. That's fine. Okay. The power here is going to be in this automation. So let's pick up something like license fees. Again, this could be anything. And let's say we'll go with 12,000 to make it nice, an interesting number there. We're going to say there's a 10% deposit. Okay. And let's date this again. I'm going to date this back just like so. So we see a couple of those postings. This is going to defer it, schedule invoices, again, whatever cadence that I'd like, and hold that deposit. And it's going to calculate all of this for me. So I'm going to submit, like so. I don't have approvals on my orders. And I'm going to jump back into that automation center. I'm going to run two things. I'm going to run my deferred income. And now the only reason I have to manually run this right now is because I'm mid-period. Generally, this is all going to happen automatically. And I'm going to run my billing schedule, just like so. Now those will take moments, okay? But typically, like I said, those will automatically kick in based on predefined schedules in the system to run and produce the transactions associated. We can see them whirring away there. They're done. We jump back in, like so. We've got our schedule and we've got our deferred profile. Now the deferred, of course, works just like our other one, just like prepayments, but of course on the sales ledger. There's my deferred income, recognizing that revenue across the 12 months. There's my two deferred release journals. The schedule, automatic invoicing. Well, there's the schedule. Of course, we put £12,000 on there, but we took 10% deposit, is prorated the other 900 across the year. And it's created 2 of those first invoices. Now they can be automatically sent out. So you can set up an entire billing schedule here that sends out, defers it, takes deposits, and manages the entire customer lifecycle. Of course, this could all tie into projects as well for additional enhanced reporting. A couple of last pieces on the automation side of this. Accruals, and I'll just talk to accruals, but with accruals we can automatically identify commitments in the system, purchase orders, expense claims, goods received notes, and unapproved invoices. We're going to scoop them up, account for them, and then automatically reverse them out the first of the following period. You can of course do manual accruals as well, not a problem at all. Auto reversing out so that when you're realizing those invoices coming in, you don't have to do anything else, you just allocate it. Okay. Bank reconciliation, big part of month end, but actually not anymore, because with modern day open banking feeds, we can start to feed in that data daily to do that reconciliation. Now we integrate with open banking providers to feed in from all major banks. Be confident your banks are available, but have a chat with us. We'll find out if they are available on the platform. They probably are. Here we can see this is my bank statement. This is the feed that's come through from, let's say, HSBC, Barclays, NatWest, Nationwide, whomever. And on the right is my cash book. Now I could go through this and say, right, let's match these, like so, one by one. Yeah, that's great. I don't want to do that. I want this to match them all in one go. So let's just hit match. And it's a bit of a blink and you'll miss it because it's already done. 11 matches. I'm doing this daily. Simple. Of course, there are going to be some outliers, some stragglers. It's not infallible. It's identifying these based on certain criteria. Now we know it's this. And let's say we don't want this to happen again. Let's create a rule. It's going to automatically create me my rule so this doesn't happen again. We match it. We then default match the next one. And we've got a couple of other transactions. Okay. Now, bank fees, charges, interest. We're not going to have a cash book entry for this. So let's go and create one of a template we've got in the system. It's this quick. There's my template. Value posted to the correct nominal. Submit. Done. I've created the transaction and reconciled it. Early payment from a customer. Same thing. Let's create my receipt. Let's find the customer. Let's allocate, double click, submit, done. I've created this transaction, I've allocated it to the invoice, and I've reconciled the bank account. How quick was that? That's my bank rec done for the day. Again, I don't need to do that at month end now. Super quick, super simple. All right. So those are some of the contributing automations, and there are more that start to alleviate the burden and the manual re-entry, importing, all of this data, all of this stuff at month end. Okay, so it starts to become really quick and really easy, allowing you to focus on things that really matter. But of course, the next piece of this is, what is the output? I've got real-time access to the data. It's all flowing nice. I don't have to do as much manual work in Excel as I used to, but I still need to get these reports out. Well, okay, let's look at this. So we've got lots of reporting options within iPlicit. Let's start with this here, and let's actually bring this right down. This here, and in fact, let's bring it right down to the current year. This is my P&L. The first big piece of this is automatically consolidated. So I haven't had to consolidate anything. Remember, I've got loads of legal entities within here. That would usually take me hours. I might be bringing it from disparate systems, even worse. If it's not consolidating in a single system, but this is, okay? So I don't need to do that. But if I want to see this split out by entity, I just click a button. There's the 3 entities that I have within this group, okay? Now we can have multiple financial year groups. You can slice and dice this however you like. Now here's 2026. Of course, let's maybe open this up to last year and see a little bit more data. So let's just go back to last year so we can see the full year like so. Now with this, again, I can still flip. There's a legal entities within there. So I've got a P&L instantly across each legal entity. With this here, I can shrink it up and down to view it in lots of different ways, just like so. I can interact with it on screen to view that data. I can apply filters if I want to see one specific legal entity, just like that. Of course, we've got very powerful intercompany transactions within here, automating the corresponding journals, sales, purchase ledger transactions, things like that. We need to eliminate them. Well, that's easy. Firstly, I can show just the eliminations, or I can show everything without the eliminations. Again, how much time is that saving you from Excel? I've got loads of other filtering options, cost centers, departments, period, currency, all of these things to slice and dice and filter. But sometimes, although we have that up the top here that we may want to pivot to, sometimes we want to do that manually on screen. I don't like to say the word manually. It's not manually, it's about flexibility. Because over here on this right-hand side, I have a cog, the all-powerful cog. Now this cog, what does it allow me to do? It allows me to pivot and slice and dice this data any which way that I like. iPlicit has unlimited dimensional analysis, meaning that whatever you're capturing at transactional level, based on things like departments, cost centers, projects, revenue streams, funds, fund types, anything you like, there is no limit, and it's on a line by line level of any transaction, including journals. We're capturing it and we can report on it. So cost center, yep, let's throw that into the mix. There we go. Department, yeah, let's throw that in as well. I want to see side by side. So now we have cost center, now we have department, but of course we always had period in there as well. So now I'm really taking the magnifying glass out and scrutinizing my ledger. All right, again, roll this up, see that in a different view. So whatever you want to pivot this data by, it's really quick, really easy to do so. But of course, we have lots of different outputs that we want to adhere to. We might have funding bodies that we need to report back to. We may have a board of trustees or investor management sets that we need to create every single month. I'm imagining we're typically doing that in Excel. Not anymore. Let's expand this out because, of course, this is my chart of account structure. It doesn't have to be yours. You can have whatever you like here. But over here, when I need to make those changes, the output, the reporting sort of for the different audience, I can just choose from a drop down and say, right, I need my investor set. There we go. Because you can configure exactly what each chart of account says, where it's positioned, and even if it's included on this specific report. So if I've got my SORP and SOFA, done. If I need to flip this into US GAAP, done. Whatever the output, whatever the format that's needed, whomever the audience, is completely customizable and user definable to create the output that's required for you. Again, loads of time saved. Now there are inquiry screens that exist like this all over iPlicit, and they all have this same functionality. And the one thing I haven't shown you with this is, of course, with all this pivoting, slicing and dicing, we can also drill down into the underlying data. I can see every transaction that makes up that cell, that date, that, everything posted against 4,000 in February. And with that, I can drill down into the underlying transaction. I can see it's paid. I can see the supplier or the customer, I should say. I can see the audit log behind this. Everything is there, right at your fingertips. Again, we're empowering finance teams to access real-time data instantly to make those informed decisions. Now, we've got loads of inquiry screens within iPlicit. This is just one. Of course, you've got your balance sheet, same functionality, same things I can do within here. Got my trial balance. Again, same sort of stuff. I can go in, let's look back again and expand this out a little bit. There's my, last year. There's all of that. Again, I can expand this out. But equally, if I wanted to scrutinize this and look at specific posted dates to interrogate the data, look at all transactions posted across a time frame, I have access to this. Live, real-time, status, posting, audit logs, values, everything. Let's take a sidestep. There are, of course, other types of inquiries out there as well. Let's take age debtors, age creditors. These reports exist too. Whether I'm looking at this by any of the filtered options up here, whether I want to pivot the interval, like so, again, all user definable and customizable, whether I want to look at this by legal entity, by supplier group, by classification? Do I want to drill down into it? I can do all of that. Same for my debtors, same across the whole system. There are hundreds of these inquiry screens throughout iPlicit. That's just level 1 of reporting, inquiry screens. They are somewhat of an engine within iPlicit, powering, as you've seen, a lot of flexibility and in-depth financial analysis. But let's take level 2, reports. Now, I'm only going to show you one report because ultimately it's a PDF. Most systems produce a PDF, okay? We're not, breaking the bank there. We're not sort of, bending the wheel too much. But what's really nice about this is that you can actually automatically schedule any PDF within iPlicit to a predefined audience. If you want a debtors, creditors, P&L, whatever it is, to go to a user group every Monday morning at 8 a.m., that's absolutely fine. Okay, not a problem. They can be scheduled to shoot out of the system. If you want budgeting information to hit their inbox, so let's say I'm going to jump in somewhere here slightly different. I'm going to show you another report, okay, another inquiry. If I jump into this here and I say, right, here is an inquiry where we're looking at, let's actually drop those off. We're looking at our budget for October for this department, actuals, committed spend, budget, and what's left to spend. Now, firstly, I can say, do you know what, let's actually add year to date. Let's add full year. I want to see a more holistic approach to this. It's all there. And I can very easily drill down into that those commitments and drill down into those, all right at my fingertips. But I want to get this out to users. Maybe I don't want to give them self-service. I want to give them access. So let's produce the report. So I can jump in and say, right, well, here's our IT department's PDF of that. We're going to see the total budget actual for the month, the year, the annual. We're going to see the postings against each nominal. We're going to then see the actuals, the transactions, and we're going to see the commitments. But what I can also do is if I jump into my scheduler, I can go and configure this to say, right, who does it go to? What's the entity? What's the forecast? The department. Again, every Monday morning, 8 a.m., key stakeholders receive the information that's relevant to them. Powerful. So then we've got the next level is the visual representation of this data, the dashboards. We've got some really exciting things coming up with dashboards, interactivity, responsible AI, and interrogation of data. If you'd like to see a bit of that, you have to join us for a demo because we've got, not going to show that today, but we've got some really powerful reporting options coming on top of everything that we've already got. But let's take a look at these dashboards. They are interactive. We've got P&L reporting with sort of pre-configured reporting options by departments, cost centers, entities, and things like this. I can scroll down and see the underlying data, aged creditors, budget versus actual reporting, aged debtors. Okay, it's all there right at my fingertips. I can click on things, it pre-filters that data wherever I'm selecting. All right. I could take this and export it out as a PDF, an image into Excel, do whatever I like with it. Okay. So really powerful, again, informing users trends of sort of highlight reel information relating to all of this powerful data that's kept within iPlicit. All right. Now it doesn't just end there. And although we'd love you to do all of your reporting within iPlicit, we do appreciate that sometimes there is a need for Excel. So we don't want to stop you. We don't want to slow you down. Sometimes it's, well, actually, it's a really good presentation tool. We want to be able to configure this and change this and do this. Or actually, the Board of Trustees, this is how they expect it. This is what they're used to. We don't want to change that. Well, let me show you how we help. So with that in mind, iPlicit build the iPlicit add-in. What does this allow you to do? Well, this allows you to draw upon any of the data within iPlicit. Okay, we can go in and look at the specific inquiries that exist. So let's take a look at how that looks like. So I can say, right, I want some age creditor information. I'm going to take this and I'm going to create a table. It's as simple as that. Of course, with that table, and not to do too much of an Excel demo here, but I can come in and I can say, yeah, well, let's insert a pivot table from that, like so. and maybe then I want to include certain different things, and from that, of course, I want to then insert in a table or a chart, and away I go. Okay, so how quick was that? I'm suddenly building out charts and reports and graphs. But chances are you've already got these kind of things in place, and you don't want to actually build more. Okay, I understand. Let's just feed the data directly in then. Equals IP. Suddenly, I've got a whole list of implicit specific functions. Okay. GLB will just go for a standard general ledger base amount. Of course, though, the spreadsheet dictates I need to give it a bit of direction. So let's say it's this legal entity. We'll say it relates to this period, and we'll say it relates to this nominal code. Just like that, I now have live data fed into Excel. Copy and paste it across the cell. There we go. Of course, got some other fields on there. Well, I'm not going to redo those. Let's just refresh the spreadsheet. Suddenly, I've got live real-time data in the format that I need or that I'm looking for, fed directly from implicit. So your management accounts are now being automatically fed if they're in Excel. They're being produced in implicit. They're being displayed on dashboards. They're being circulated via PDF, however you need them. So can you see now how we're reducing all that manual workload at month end and how we're going from 10 days down to 3? And then all those reporting options, however you'd like to see that data, is happening, but with the added ability to interrogate, to understand, to see trends, to get more from that data. So, I mean, if we take this again, lastly, we jump into here and we say, right, we've got a big report, come in at month end, Control F9, and just refresh it. It's as simple as that. However you'd like to report, implicit have the options and the solutions within here. All right. So I think for today, that's probably what I intended to cover. But if we take a look at this and actually jump to the next stage, of course, like we said at the beginning, month end shouldn't feel like a firefight with all this manual work, with all of the, well, all this data input, reporting, configuration, consolidating, and things like this. And so month end realistically should go from this to this: automated tasks, management accounts in days, not weeks, and accurate real-time data that you can rely on. Now, that's enough of me for today, but of course, we're going to flip to this screen here. And of course, we've got potentially some questions in the chat. So I don't know, Max, if you want to read them out, or if anyone wants to start popping them in there now, we'll happily address them. But I will say there's lots of contact information on screen. If you would like to find out more, if you would like to book a demo, please do. We'd love to speak to you. But sorry, Max, over to you.
Yeah, no, that's fine, James. Thanks very much. Great overview of the system and how it can extract the data. I mean, I've seen the implicit add-in so many times, but just still